Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. And recently we got some new announcements regarding some of the class tuning coming up with this next Tuesday or Wednesday reset depending on your region, where we got a ton of class buffs on the horizon. All of the previously undertuned and underdeveloped and underrepresented specs are receiving a lot of improvements, while some of the more favored and some of the more overrepresented playstyles are receiving some of the cutbacks as well. Though while it's unlikely that the more popular specs are going to be going by the wayside anytime soon, the buffs in this weekly reset are looking quite exciting. This set of weekly changes also features PvE changes for raids and dungeons, but also PvP specific adjustments as well, with a lot of global damage reductions planned for the rest of the Season 3. There's a lot of changes for us to go over, so I want to dive into this as soon as possible. But right before we do that, most of you guys watching these regular update videos are still not subscribed. However, the more of you remind, the more of you do, so let's keep it going. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're watching these videos anyway, especially if you want to get more regular content regarding Dragonflight 10.2 or any of the future updates going forward. Starting off with the class of the Demon Hunter, where we see actually reductions to one of the more popular specs for the patch 10.2. Heavy Demon Hunters will see nerfs to some of their cleave-based abilities, which will impact them in both single target as well as in AoE situations. Abilities such as Sigil of Flame takes a 10% nerf, as so does Collective Anguish Fell Devastation component. The Big Immolation Aura combo has also been nerfed as well, where the talent of Ragefire will now store 5% less of overall Immolation crit damage, and Fire Inside has a slightly lower chance to reset Immolation Aura. Though all in all, I believe Demon Hunters will likely remain strong going forth for Season 3, however, I do think they will do notably less damage with this build than before. Then we have the class of the Evoker, where the spec of Devastation is finally getting some love, by seeing a 15% damage increase to the pyre damage within AoE content, while also getting a 3% all ability damage buff as well. The Healing Preservation spec also gains additional changes, specifically when it comes to the talent of Resonating Sphere, which will now apply 5 echoes to the first 5 allies hit, up from 3, which is a pretty big bonus. This change allows Preservation to feel a little bit more consistent, specifically within Mythic Plus content, as they are now able to support every single party member within the Mythic Plus dungeon group with echoes to provide additional support. This change also works well in raid content, but this definitely has a much bigger impact in Mythic Plus dungeons. Next, we have the class of Mage, which has been buffed wholesale, with every single one of its playstyles getting some form of improvements. However, some of these improvements will be more specific than others depending on the spec that you choose to play. Like when it comes to Arcane Mage, we're seeing buffs to their Arcane Blast and Arcane Missiles, which targets mostly their single target damage output, but also does help them out within their cleave capabilities when it comes to the ability and the splash damage of Touch of the Magi. Fire Mages are seeing increases to their abilities such as Fire Blast, Pyroblast, and Fireball, which improve their single target output, but also Flame Strike as well as Intensifying Flame talent, which offers a mix of single target increases but also cleave damage increases and AoE improvements, which means Fire Mages should perform better overall within PvE content. And finally, when it comes to Frost, we're seeing buffs to their abilities such as Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Flurry, as well as Glacial Spike, which will offer them better single target damage, but also a mix of cleave damage as well, since Frost has so many components that allow their abilities to get natural cleave elements. Altogether, Mage is looking up heading forth for the patch 10.2, and I'm very excited to give my Mage alt a go in dungeons after all of these changes. I do wonder how well mages are going to perform when it comes to their overall popularity, but these changes should help them out in certain critical areas. And mages are not the only classes getting some massive improvements, as we also see additional changes to the spec of Windwalker Monks. The purpose of these changes specifically is to make the tier set feel a little bit more satisfying to use, by buffing certain aspects and even talents that interact with the tier bonus directly, while also improving the damage of some of the chi spinning abilities. We see increases to abilities such as Spinning Crane Kick, which is buffed by 10%. Then we have Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Fist of Fury also receiving additional damage improvements. For the tier set, Blackout Reinforcement tier set bonus effect now is increased to amplify the next Blackout Kick by 250% instead of the original 200%. Glory of Dawn talent has also been buffed by 12%, which increases the output of your Rising Sun kick, and Dance of Chi-Ji damage bonus has also been increased by 300%, up from 200%, which should improve your overall AoE and cleave capabilities. All in all, Windwalkers are actually looking kind of good based on the early impression with these nodes that are arriving with the next weekly reset. It's been a bit since the last time I spec'd my monk into the Windwalker spec. Usually I stick around with Mistweaver, but I do wonder how well they're going to perform after these changes and if maybe their popularity increases in content such as Mythic Plus dungeons. Up next we have Retribution Paladins, and just like mages and monks, red pallies are also seeing a damage increase, though pally notes are not nearly as comprehensive as what monks and mages have gotten. Still, this is a buff that does go a long way into making paladins a little bit stronger. Following Paladins, we also see a buff to the spec of Shadow Priest, which has gotten a bit more cleave damage to the Psychic Link ability, which is getting increased by 10% within AoE content, which offers additional damage improvements in content like Mythic Plus dungeons, as well as certain raid encounters. Holy Priest is another priest spec that's getting additional improvements, with all its healing increased by 3%, as well as a 15% direct buff to the ability of Prayer of Mending, which offers additional group-wide healing. Next, we see a nerf to one of the more popular top and DPS specs when it comes to 10.2 rating, with Assassination rogues seeing a 3% reduction towards their abilities as well as the basic auto attacks. Then we have the class of Shaman, starting with the spec of Elemental, where we're seeing a buff to the Earthquake ability increased by 50%, which seems like a wildly big number. Enhancement Shamans gains additional defense to the talent of Elemental Warding, which will further reduce all magic damage taken by up to 6% when fully talented into. For Restoration Shamans, the talent of Torrent will increase the initial healing of Riptide by up to 30%, up from 20%. Healing Surge's healing is being increased by 12%, and Healing Stream is being buffed by 12% also. Then we have Warlocks, with Affliction gaining additional AoE improvements. We see the Corruption getting a damage bonus of 10%, while Soul Rot will now hit 4 additional targets, but when combined together with the Dark Harvest talent, which will now increase Critical Strike as well as Haste by 4% per target, offers you quite a bursty AoE Soul Rot combination that may make Affliction quite deadly in Mythic Plus content. Destruction Warlock is another spec that's also seen additional buffs as well, with damage increases to Rain of Fire by 12%, as well as Cataclysm, a talent that we haven't seen in quite a long while, getting improved by 25%, which might make the talent actually somewhat impactful in certain situations. The immolation damage from your Infernos and Blasphemies is also getting tuned up by 25%, while your periodic damage of Immolate is getting improved by 10%. Up next, we have some PvP specific changes, starting with a tuning adjustment to the PvP Trinket 2-set bonus. The primary stats gained for tanks and DPS playstyles is being reduced from a 20% increase down to a 12% increase, which is overall a class-wide nerf to overall outgoing damage for DPS and tanks within PvP content. Next, we see a class-wide adjustment for every single playstyle that plays with a backlash effect. Backlash effect abilities such as the Balanced Druid's Stellar Flare, or the Shaman's Control of Lava Flame Shock damage, or the Warlock's Unstable Affliction Silence and Damage ability, all of these backlash damage over time effects are all being buffed by 8% in terms of overall damage. Now for some spec-specific changes. Feral Druids are getting 20% more healing for the Regrowth ability, which will offer them a little bit more survivability. Marksmanship Hunters see additional buffs for PvP, with Aim Shot gaining 15% more damage while Rapid Fire gains 10% more damage instead. Holy Paladins will lose out on 10% of the mana regen within PvP. Enhancement Shaman's Healing Surge is being buffed by 17%, which like Feral Druid offers better self-healing. The Elemental Shaman's Searing Flames now has a 40% chance to generate Maelstrom within PvP. Elemental's Rolling Magma is now 60% effective within PvP, while Restoration Shaman's Healing Tide Totem now has 30% additional health to make it more consistent. Subtlety Rogue's 2-set Pure Set bonus is now 30% effective in PvP instead of 50%, which is a 20% nerf. While the Eviscerate damage is being reduced by 7.5%, which means Subtlety is going to be slightly less bursty. Affliction Warlock's Dark Harvest talent that recently got buffed for PvE is seeing a 75% effectiveness within PvP. Jester Warlock's Chaos Bolt loses 5% damage, as so does their Shadowburn ability, and the Destruction Warlock's talent of Flashpoint now has a 50% reduced effectiveness within PvP. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.